Now, I'm going to destroy his argument that the author made conscious edits to the Bible and that the author did not intend to contradict himself, and therefore he cannot be giving absolute confirmation of the Bible while then editing what's found in the Bible, begging the question, assuming what is yet to prove. We'll take that one at a time. All right, let's go.
Can I address that?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Wait. Can you help me understand what the big burden is?
The big burden is to show, because even if you prove to us, let's say there's one major theme in the Gospels that's recurring, the claim is that you, as Chris stated before, we can show that the majority of the recurring themes contradict with Islam. So you can't just show one major theme in the Gospels that contradicts. You're gonna have to show that the majority of them contradict. So that's the big burden.
You're saying one recurring thing in that contradicts Islam isn't enough. You want to have multiple recurring major things.
Because that's a standard. Yeah, because that's the standard we set with Chris at the beginning.
Okay, cool. Yeah, like I said, I'm just clarifying. That's all.
So I would push back on the need for things to be like recurring a lot. I don't know why that needs to be a thing. So, for example, when you look at the crucifixion, like the crucifixion that event doesn't happen at the beginning of the Gospels, right? It happens near the end of the Gospels. But that doesn't take away from the fact that it's obviously a major theme.
Well, even the prediction of the crucifixion is a recurring theme in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So it's recurring because that Jesus predicts it, announces it, and then it ends up being fulfilled.
That the gospel writers are trying to get to. So the crucifixion, I think, is one. The fact that Christ rose from the dead is one. The fact that Christ's baptism I would include as one as well. I would say that the idea of marriage in heaven not being applicable in the gospel context, according to Jesus' words in the Synoptic Gospels, that's something the Quran disagrees with. I think that's a pretty major thing. Like, I think you would have to reconcile these things in order for general confirmation to work.
Yeah. So let's deal with that one by one, right?
Okay.
So first we'll just start with like the crucifixion. I'll grant you the crucifixion, resurrection is a major theme, right? I'll grant you that.
Okay.
That's a major theme. That's one of the major themes, but this is the exception to the rule because the Quran does the conscious edit on that point, saying
It says the Quran does a conscious edit of that point. No, it doesn't. I'm going to destroy and dismantle this.
that they didn't kill or they didn't crucify nor kill Jesus in 4157. So that's just gonna be like the exception to the general rule. Then what you're gonna have is the other stuff you mentioned, which we can discuss on, right? So marriage in heaven, that itself is not a major recurring theme because we know Matthew and Luke copies that detail from Mark. So really,
so Matthew and Luke copy from Mark, there is no marriage in heaven, and therefore that's not a major theme. But the fact that Matthew and Luke will repeat that saying of Jesus that you claim they got from Mark shows that the Gospels agree with the historical Jesus. There is no sex in paradise. And therefore, this means that the Quran claiming that paradise will be a glorified house cannot be true. So even if it's from Mark, the fact that Matthew and Luke quote it means that they approve of it and accept it as a genuine saying of the historical Jesus, which means they're on board. So that's three witnesses agreeing with Jesus' statement, paradise won't be a whorehouse. So what does that mean? But nonetheless, I'm going to show you that the Quran does not make a conscious set of the crucifixion. Either he's ignorant or he's lying or both. Just let him make his point.
there's only one source that mentions it, which is Mark, that they're taking from, right? And
yet, let's play that game. There's only one verse in the Quran that even can be interpreted to be a denial of the crucifixion. The crucifixion of Christ is hardly touched upon in the entire Quran, whether in the Meccan period, Medinan period, apart from 4157, and even that's open to interpretation. It doesn't say he wasn't killed. He wasn't crucified. We'll get there. So, you understand? This guy thinks he's being intelligent, thinks that he's offering a good argument. He's not. It's an embarrassment, and I'll get there. And I'm going to show that the Quran confirms everything in the Bible, not just a general confirmation, and then consciously edits things in the Bible that the author of the Quran disagrees with. That's not what we find in the Quran. We find the author of the Quran believing everything in the Bible because he confirms the scriptures that the Jews and Christians possessed without a word that he's coming to correct what they contain. And the only scriptures they had are the books of your Bible. What he is, quote unquote, consciously editing is the things he's hearing orally, being ignorant of the fact whether those things are in the Bible or not, because he cannot tell what is simply a tradition, an interpretation from what's in the Bible. He gives the author of the Quran too much credit because he's begging the question. He thinks the author of the Quran is Allah, even though he's saying that's not what he's assuming. Yes, you are. Because if you assume it's just some ignorant person or a group of ignorant individuals who do not know what's in the Bible and yet want to confirm everything in the Bible, but then go ahead and then repeat stories or change stories that do not agree with what's in the Bible because they are ignorant of the fact that what they're repeating and changing affects what's in the Bible, which they confirm to be completely true. You understand my point? You understand the point? Let me, in a nutshell, sum up what he's saying. The author of the Quran is saying that I do believe these scriptures are revelations from God, even though there are things in them that have been tampered with and corrupted. And he bases that on the fact that when the Quran narrates stories that are parroting biblical material, you'll find that the versions of those stories in the Quran do not agree completely with what is found in the Bible. So he takes that to mean that the author is now consciously editing the biblical material to show that he doesn't agree with everything stated in the Bible, and he's correcting the Bible. This is his argument in a nutshell. You with me there? Now, Muhammad Mike did an excellent job of destroying that objection. Let me open the door for the cat. He said, no, according to chapter 378, what the author of the Quran is disagreeing with is not the Bible. He affirms everything in the Bible, but he disagrees with how the Jews and Christians are twisting the Bible with their tongues, meaning he is consciously editing, to use his word, the interpretation, right, the proclamation by the Jews and Christians, not what's found in the Bible, because Muhammad was ignorant of what's in the Bible, and he thought that what the Jews and Christians were saying to him were simply their interpretation, understanding of the biblical material, and therefore he's going against what he's hearing them say while thinking he's being faithful to the Bible. You remember there? Proving the Quran is not from God. Because if it was God, God would know better. You get the point, right? And this is their best response to the Islamic dilemma. And I'm going to show you the Quran does not reject the crucifixion. And this puts him in another dilemma.
Even then, it's one time where Jesus says it. He just says it once within the gospel. It's not like this main.
How many times does Jesus need to say that there is no marriage in heaven in order to show that the Quran is wrong for changing heaven into a glorified house, a glorified Playboy mansion? Moreover, if we play that game, the Quran has Jesus mentioning Muhammad by his alternate name, Ahmed, if we take the traditional Islamic narrative seriously, only once. So is that not a major theme in the Quran, that Jesus announced the coming of Muhammad just because it's only mentioned once? And it doesn't even have Jesus using Muhammad's name, but Ahmed, which is supposedly the other name for Muhammad.